I'm H. Nigel Thomas, and I'll be reading the poem entitled Return. It is a poem that I wrote after my third trip back to St. Vincent. At the time, I was filled with questions about why I was returning to a place that had deeply wounded me. The poem doesn't deal with those wounds. In fact, none of my early poems written back in those days does. In those days, the wounds were still too raw. I've dealt with them only in the last 5 years. This poem has undergone several revisions, and in fact, the one I'm reading to you today is the last of the revisions. So, return. I've come. When a boy, I spilled myself onto this ground, and these birds, these songs, this sky, this sea, still gird my reality. Mountains, when you were like fixed smoke beyond the valley, you held and taunted me with mystery. My first conquest, seeing beyond you. My second, imitating you in that distant view of all you see as painter and viewer of us frantic figures on fixed canvas. The Atlantic, you in borrowed blue still unsymphonically sing life's cacophony. Your groans, your cryptic tones, your tales in mono and multitones were my first hints of tenebrous reality. Watching humanity weave reality with liquid threads, I see you with your dead, your smiles, your raging and hurling, your charged and charging heads, holding the secrets of eternity. Women in the river at the valley bed, submerged to your knees, still washing your clothes, your suffering, your psyches. Your men at the rum shop, self anesthetizing, the pain of history. The holy house where on airy song we soared to God's throne to thank him for our loads, now an edifice of wood and glass and stone. At the bottom of the valley, motley humanity wanders desperately, and I recall that when a boy, they made me wonder why my parents had me. Standing on this hill, I gaze at the stone where I sometimes sat alone under this cedar tree, my navel tree, now dwarfing me, that kept and still keeps me company in the cold country where I now live. We've withstood cyclonic winds. And so ends Return. I shall now read a poem that goes back, way, way back. It's called Georgetown Cemetery. And the first part of the poem, the first three stanzas, actually referred to a crisis I had when I was 16. I had briefly left the Methodist Church and joined a fundamentalist religion. And that night we were on our way back from a village, actually Chile, where the pastor had given a sermon. And as I was traveling back, I realized how inappropriate that sermon was for the sufferings that the people were enduring. And out of that came the first three stanzas of this poem. Of course, I didn't write the poem then. I just remembered the crisis, and it really was a crisis because here I was. This religion that promised me so much could actually deliver nothing. So I will read the poem. The second half, obviously, deals with what I consider to be the ontology of Georgetown folk. Georgetown Cemetery. That night, I carried the Coleman lamp, like lake in the darkness, from a village where the pastor in song and sermon had spewed lightning and thunder on village source. The cemetery's willows hissed. Inside me, reality twisted, somersaulted, fragmented. The black sand road we were traveling back on, solid, unstopped by the town, would have run into the sea, liquid. This road, one, separates hospital and cemetery, makes traversing easy, prevents confrontation. Two, does no such thing for school and cemetery. They live coterminally, in harmony, burying corpses, thought, and dignity. Three, divides school from cinema, ambiguous boundary for a planter of American dreams in Georgetown souls. Four, lets hospital and cinema live contiguously. Two plantations enclose them all and nourish hospital and cemetery with their abundant harvest. That's the end of Georgetown Cemetery.